Hey, so you're thinking about moving to Eastern Washington or North Idaho, and you're wondering which one is best for you and your family. Well, you're in luck, because in today's video, Eric and I are going to break it down. He was born and raised in Spokane, so we've got an expert in the field, and we both live on the Idaho side currently. So let's go. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the notifications bell so you can stay up to date on all of our latest content. And if you're looking to move right now or 12 months from now, it doesn't matter. Give us a call, text, or email. Let's get that conversation started. All right, first up, we're going to give you a general overview of the two areas. Like I said, Eric grew up on the Spokane side, so he can speak on that. We're going to kind of cover population, big cities in those areas, stuff like that. And then later on in the video, we're going to dive into bigger topics that you might be more concerned about, such as crime, weather, what are we talking about? Politics, culture, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, let's be real, local politics. Yeah, definitely.
All right, so Spokane side, big cities, what's up?
Man, it's wild, the difference between North Idaho cities and Spokane cities geographically. Man, it's almost turned into one big metropolitan, but you can really see that shift when you go across the Washington state line. You have Otis Orchards, Spokane Valley, Liberty Lake, and then Spokane. Spokane's population's right around 553,000 people, so it's a lot bigger metropolitan area. Yeah, and it expands out from there. There's some beautiful country on the east side of Washington, too. If you get out into like Usk and Colville and some of those areas, there's some cool spots out there.
So the North Idaho side, obviously the biggest city, well, maybe it's not obvious anymore. It's getting close call on the race, but the biggest city here is Coeur d'Alene. Currently, I think population's sitting about 57,000. Next up would be Post Falls, and they're at 46,000. Post Falls is the fastest growing city in North Idaho and will surpass Coeur d'Alene at some point for sure. There's just more space there. Coeur d'Alene is starting to go vertical now. If you go to downtown Coeur d'Alene, you can see it. We've talked about it in lots of videos. Lots of vertical growth going that way, just because the horizontal growth is limited now, just based on the size of the city. Then we've got Hayden, we've got Rathdrum. Rathdrum is another big growing area. Lots of new construction going in over there. I'm sure when you grew up, it was called Rat Dump. Have you heard that?
Yeah, something like that. Well, Athol was always the funniest.
And that's where the Satan worshippers lived, I've heard, in Rathdrum.
Yes,
yeah, I haven't seen any. I don't think they live there anymore, but just, a little bit of history back in the day.
So next segment we're going to talk about is crime and safety. I'm really passionate about this, obviously, for those who have listened to us before, given my prior profession. I grew up on the South Hill in Spokane. I went to Lewis and Clark High School. It's a downtown Spokane high school. My mom was a cop there. I live right next to Manitou Park. Spokane geographically is awesome. There's a lot of really cool things to do there, and unfortunately, policies have ramifications. Right now, Spokane is, when you look at property crime and violent crime, it is only safer than 3% of U.S. cities.
Wow, that's a terrible
statistic. When you look at their rank nationally, they've increased in their overall crime rate by 28% since 2004. Their violent crime rate is about 6 in 1,000 people, and their property crime rate's about 50 in 1,000. So obviously, look, I talk a lot about dope. I talk a lot about fentanyl. I just gave a presentation to our city council members with 120,000 people dying every year nationally due to fentanyl overdose. I broke it down by city. National average makes that 1 out of 3,500 people. In Coeur d'Alene, we had 6. So Spokane had 250 last year.
Out of 3,500?
No,
or total.
Okay, total ODs that they actually categorized, which is a whole different topic. But I digress. So Spokane had 250. Coeur d'Alene had 6. So national average is right around 1 in 3,500. Coeur d'Alene put us right around 1 in 9,600. And Spokane was 1 in 2,250.
So Idaho side well below the national average.
Oh, significantly in Washington.
Eastern Washington's above.
And you and I both agree, drug uses, open air drug use, and all that stuff can be a general correlation to other crimes. Property crimes follow it, violent crimes follow it, stuff like that. So,
this would be a good time to talk about that chart. We'll throw it up on the screen for you guys. States ranked by overall crime rates. So number 3 on the list is the great state of Washington. Oddly enough, number 1 and 2 are New Mexico and Colorado. California's up there in the top 8. Tennessee's up there too. That's a shocker. Guess where Idaho is? It is.
Gotta scroll down.
Yeah, hold on, way down here. It's second to last. New Hampshire is the only state that beat us in overall crime rate as far as being the lowest. So I'm trying not to be biased towards the Idaho side, but man, that's a strong indicator for a lot of people. A lot of people are looking for a safer place, especially if you're coming from one of those states, California, Oregon, and Washington. Nevada, all have high crime rates, and you're looking for that safer way of life. It's going to be a toss-up if you're actually considering the Washington side.
Yeah.
When you see that.
Well, and a lot of it, again, man, we go back to policies, and I think some of it, there's some great officers that are cops in Washington, but they're almost apathetic towards like those precursors to violent crime, right? You can't be as proactive. You know, you can't detain somebody on reasonable suspicion. Some of those policies really killed their ability to curb some of that crime. And man, like I said, some of those guys are really, really good cops. When you have things like Crime Check, where citizens are just getting funneled towards just a system as opposed to having a cop show up at their house, it's just a different. It's hard to keep up, and it's so crazy that Washington's policies are so drastically different than Idaho's, and you can clearly see the results. I mean, I grew up there. Everybody wants to be proud of where they grew up, and it's just watching the change is heartbreaking.
Yeah, and then I mean, you can speak on the Coeur d'Alene side. Obviously, you just left Coeur d'Alene PD. If you didn't know, Eric just came full time with us on the real estate side. Had a wonderful career with Coeur d'Alene PD and Kootenai County SO. So you can speak on the crime side here. Is Coeur d'Alene PD a lot more proactive, and I guess law enforcement as a whole in North Idaho, are they still able to fight crime?
Yeah, it's. I mean, that's a general, mission subset of those two big ones that you mentioned, Kootenai County and Coeur d'Alene, having worked for both those. But that is a product of our community. Our community supports us in our endeavors to make it safer. So when something, by and large, if anything ever goes, viral, or there's something on North Idaho News or something gets posted, right, where it could potentially be unfavorable, by and large, our citizens support us, which allows us to drive our crime rate down 70% in the last 6 years in the face of a huge population increase.
That's impressive.
Yeah, but again, I'd love to say it's because all the cops here are awesome. The cops here are awesome. They work really hard and they find work. But another big part of that is just the policies that back us here. And our judicial system still has some teeth. So I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, so side note, if you're in law enforcement in another state and you're tired of not being able to do your job, they are hiring up here. So hit us up. We can connect you with some good people in all the departments up here.
I'll say this. We get frustrated. I say we, former, whatever, but it is frustrating for us when we're chasing our bad guys here and they just have this like home base they can flee to right across the state line. It's good for our citizens, but it drives us nuts. Because we're like, we want to close this thing out. But man, if they're doing bad things over here, they eventually get pushed over the Washington state line.
Dude, we're not doing a great job of talking up Eastern Washington.
I'm trying,
I know. But I mean, maybe you need to move there for some specific reason.
Right.
Or maybe you're not conservative, and if you've made it this far in the video, good for you. And maybe that would be a more comfortable place for you to live. Maybe you don't like guns. I don't know. Man, I'm doing a terrible job. Obviously, we're very, very biased for the Idaho side, but we did want to give you information so you can make that decision, because maybe you, like I said, you have some real reason to be over there. What's up next, dude? We hit crime and safety. We touch on it all? I think we did. Yeah.
Politics and culture.
Ooh, that's not a spicy topic at all.
Oh, but that's where Washington, it kind of drives me crazy a little bit, right? Like the country made this big, massive decision and this big shift politically, at a national level, and Washington just seems to be doubling down.
Yeah, right.
Instead of recognizing that there's been a shift in a lot of people's opinions. I mean, electing Ferguson, going from Inslee to Ferguson.
Strange.
Jesus.
Strange. And I feel for the people, because Eastern Washington as a whole, if you don't know this, is pretty conservative. Obviously, you've got pockets, and that's usually the case when you have a dense population. It becomes pretty liberal, and colleges are involved, things like that. So, I think Washington's kind of in the same boat that California and Oregon are in too. They have a large population of conservative people that live in the rural areas, but it's controlled by that urban, denser population. So I really feel for the people in Washington. We get a lot of calls of guys that, are very strong in the gun culture, and they happen to be living in Washington, and they're facing these insane laws that are coming down the pipeline, and they're done, and they're just ready to get out. So it's a growing concern for the conservatives on that side of the border. Right, and I love some of those areas. I mean, I got a black bear in Usk, a couple years ago. Yeah. There's some beautiful areas. Washington's amazing geographically, mountains and lakes and Puget Sound. And the Pacific Northwest, and absolutely gorgeous. Seattle used to be one of my favorite cities to go to when it was clean, but it was always like the later stages of the cool hipster cities. Yes. You get to that, and then it turns into like... San Francisco, the same thing, right? It used to be really cool.
Austin, Texas.
Deteriorated rapidly.
Where it just gets pretty rough pretty quick. But I do love that side of it. The problem, even with being on the outskirts of some of the major metropolitan areas, you're still impacted by some of the politics, man. And when you start to look at, is this a good time to go over some of the healthcare stuff? I think it's pretty good.
We can jump into that. I think everyone understands the politics, right? It's pretty clear.
Right.
Oh, the share of Democrats in each U.S. state. I'm not trying to turn anyone away, but this is good information. So Idaho is 26% Democrat. That is the lowest in the country. I don't see one other state that is better than us.
Not necessarily better. I mean, it just depends.
Right. Good point. Yeah. Utah
it does.
is pretty low, but that's it. Okay, and then California. No, we're talking about Washington here. Sorry. Washington is at 50% Democrat, which is interesting. It's not a majority. Like California's 56, Oregon's 56% Democrat. So, that just kind of shows, well, one, Idaho's amazing if you're conservative. Two, Washington is like, it's not that far off, but
right.
So you've got a lot of people that are living there that are like not happy.
But it's the tail that wags the dog, dude.
Yeah.
What comes out of Seattle and Olympia, dictates what happens around the rest of the state. And trust me when I say I really want to like Washington. I wish some of that would shift. And there are people that have to live there for work and stuff like that. But I'll tell you what, we have a lot of cops that work in Washington that live in Idaho.
A lot. We just helped a couple move here.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it. I spent a lot of time over in Liberty Lake. I like Liberty Lake.
Yeah.
Once again, very conservative population. Cool town. Got a great vibe. A lot of growth going on there. But
man, you still got those policies.
Still dictated by the policies.
And even if you're out there, and let's say you are out there in Usk, or you're out there in some of the, like Deer Park, still some crime up there, but not as bad as like Spokane, obviously. Let's say we have somebody close to us that's in the medical field that works in Washington. Let's say that. I can tell you that everybody over there is impacted by some of those policies, especially if you're on Medicaid, where people are having to go to the ER because they can't get a primary care appointment for 4 or 5 months. I get annoyed here when it's like a week or two out. I'm like, oh, come on. I didn't realize how bad it was over there. And some of that is just the policies enacted at, large state government level. There's one out there called Apple Health Expansion, where if you are an undocumented immigrant in the state of Washington above the age of 19 and you've been there for 5 years, your medical coverage is paid for by the state of Washington. So you have legitimate, hardworking people that have paid taxes their whole life that are on Medicaid, not rich, but on Medicaid, and they can't get in appointments because that whole system is absolutely flooded with people that are getting free, which isn't free, it's our tax dollars, which can be really, really frustrating. And it's the same even with kids. When you look at the burden on that system, if you have a child that's exhibiting symptoms of autism, that wait right now is anywhere from, in Washington, from 1.5 to 3 years to even get in and start getting treatment. And
it's terrifying as a parent.
Oh, yeah. And, it's known that you got to get in there before the age of 5. That's kind of the standard to start that treatment early. And it can have really, really good effects. But there's just such a burden on the system because people that are coming up that are undocumented aren't stupid. Which state are you going to go to? Are you going to go to Idaho or Utah where those systems aren't there? But if you have the Apple Health Expansion where literally you don't have to pay anything for healthcare.
At face value, I can't understand the logic behind that, but I was just listening to a podcast with Elon Musk on Joe Rogan and we were talking, this is, if you think about politics at all, this is fairly obvious, but it's the Democratic Party buying votes is what it is. Right?
They played the long game, man.
They played the long game. They're buying votes. I didn't mean to get too political, but you know us by now.
Well, they infiltrated the Department of Education.
Right. So now you just can't wrap your brain around the fact that you have people that were born here and lived there their whole lives and paid taxes, like you said, and they can't get medical treatment.
Right.
But this person who crossed the border illegally can.
Right.
At our expense or their expense.
And let's say this person has told me some stories about some really good people that just fell on some hard times, but had worked hard their entire life and can't afford some treatment. And they make just above that amount. So they can't get treatment through these programs that are paid for by our citizens' tax dollars. And they're screwed. But if you were here undocumented and aren't contributing to our system or our financial base at all, you're good to go. You get a pass. It's just tough. And I know it naturally gets political. And again, I get passionate about it because I really want that state to be awesome and take a shift back towards at least the middle.
Right.
At least come back towards the middle.
So the Idaho side, totally different, right?
Oh, vastly.
Okay.
Yeah, even that. And it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think anywhere really is. But I think if you're going out there and you're looking for primary care here in general, you're going to be able to get up with one to get an appointment there within a week or two. That's been my experience. Whether it was like my foot, which I'm walking around in a freaking boot right now, but generally, if you got to go in and get something addressed, it's gone pretty quick.
Well, and we didn't talk about this beforehand, but what about VA benefits? Does that matter? Is there a difference crossing the border? Where's the big VA hospital up here?
VA hospital is in Spokane.
Okay.
That's a good one to know. There is a VA like satellite spot that's in downtown Coeur d'Alene that's pretty nice, but that's generally just kind of outpatient stuff. The big VA hospital is up there by the reserve center where I go drill.
Okay.
But it's a pretty big hospital. There's Air Force Base. Yeah, Fairchild. Jeez, I went back to Tampa. But Fairchild Air Force Base is over there in western Spokane area.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple benefits.
Oh, yeah.
For Washington.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find some pros here.
No, there are, and we're going to get into that. I mean, house prices. I mean,
sure.
We'll get into that a little bit. So there definitely are some perks. Either state recognizes some hunting privileges for disabled veterans and stuff like that. So
that's cool. Okay, let's jump into outdoor activities and lifestyle. Like Eric was talking about, the eastern side of Washington is a beautiful chunk of state. As you head like north or south, kind of along that Idaho border, there's amazing country up there. Hunting, fishing is all fantastic. Just like Idaho. I mean, really, you're on the border. So you have a lot of the same outdoor activities. You've got Mount Spokane over there. I should probably let you talk about the Washington side more because that's your old stomping grounds.
Oh, and the Palouse. The Palouse is really, really cool. I mean, it's rolling hills. It's really pretty, especially when it's in season. Very agricultural once you get outside, Spokane. I'm a big fan of the Gorge, which is a little further west. That's almost central Washington. But I said Washington. God. Anyways, but probably the coolest outdoor concert venue, short of like Red Rocks, Colorado. It's amazing. It's right on the basin of the Columbia River. It's so freaking cool. So there are some spots. I mean, Riverfront Park in downtown is an awesome park.
It's pretty cool.
It has the gondola that goes to the river. It has the carousel. It has that big red wagon, which I don't totally understand, but it's pretty cool to some people. It's right there in the river. They do a lot of events down there. Manitou Park is where I grew up, has Japanese gardens. That's a really cool spot too. Cool. So they spent a lot of time on some really cool things for the community in Spokane. A lot of soccer fields, a lot of baseball fields. I mean, a lot of that stuff. It just sucks when Riverfront's downtown and it gets infested with open air drug use. Is unfortunate. Like I said, when that part's cleaned up and nice, we still go to events down there. Bloom's Day, they do the 7.5 mile run once a year. It's neat. Get outside of Spokane. It is really, really pretty.
There's a new indoor sports facility coming to Liberty Lake. Did you know about this? I just heard about this. It's not the one you may be thinking of.
Yeah.
That's coming too, I think. This is an extension of Mode off of the Liberty Launch Academy, which is a private school. Mode is like a co-working, co-living type space. And the owner, Luke, is building I think he said it was the largest indoor sports facility in Eastern Washington. It's going to have like indoor turf, multiple fields of indoor turf, volleyball, all the stuff, dude, and like an enormous building. And it's going to be right there attached to the same building that Mode is in. So that's going to be pretty cool for sports.
Oh, yeah. That's been needed for a long time. And we've needed that on the Idaho side, which I'm glad it's in Liberty Lake. It's right
so
on the
close,
state line.
right? Yeah, so that's a plus. I mean, there's a lot of cross-border activities, honestly. So, a lot of people from Washington come over and enjoy the lake over in Coeur d'Alene. Pick your damn trash up when you come do that, by the way.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, right? People hop the border into Liberty Lake, Spokane Valley, Spokane, and enjoy the amenities there as well.
Oh, yeah. Spokane Arena. I mean, there's a lot of concerts that are there. Spokane Chiefs minor league hockey teams there. Gonzaga basketball for the sports nuts out there. That's downtown Spokane. Those are really fun games to go to. With a successful collegiate basketball program, you've got a lot of youth basketball stuff over there. My son's gone over and played it. I think they call it the Vault, but it's just a huge, massive gym over there for youth basketball. So some of the sports stuff it's nice on that side too.
Yep. Were you gonna say Topgolf when I mentioned that?
No.
Oh. I've heard Topgolf is coming to Liberty Lake.
Oh, friggin' how do we invent Chick-fil-A? I mean, they got Chick-fil-A in Spokane. We don't have that in Idaho yet.
Yeah, I was talking to Sebastian. He's one of our editors, our videographer, and he was talking about Chick-fil-A, and I was like, I pointed out the terrible ingredients in Chick-fil-A. Yeah. Like if you Google it, it's pretty disappointing.
I don't want to hear a word you have
hundreds
to say.
of fucking horrible things that they put in their food. I know.
Why? Do you
Sorry.
have to tell me
I'm sorry
that?
if I ruined your day.
You did. You just destroyed that. Thanks for that.
All right, next up, real estate, cost of living. So these are some important topics, and this is a genuinely real reason people might be considering Eastern Washington over North Idaho, and that is the cost of buying a home. I'm sure this has flipped in the last few years because I imagine Idaho used to be cheaper. Yeah. But it is no longer cheaper. The cost of a home in Idaho is generally more expensive. North Idaho is generally more expensive than Eastern Washington. So that's a big attractor for some people that are just priced out of the market here in North Idaho, but want to be close to it. They can pop over into Spokane Valley, Liberty Lake, and probably pick up a home, comparable home for quite a bit cheaper.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. And I think with the advent of telework, that big shift following, I can't say that word, following that disease that was incredibly dangerous, whatever. Yeah. So but telework became much more of a thing so people could live where they want and still get paid. It's amazing how many people here work for other state governments while living in Idaho. So prices have gone up, and I think businesses are starting to come here too. So a little bit here. Yeah.
And then, cost of living. So North Idaho is not cheap. I mean, some things are quite a bit cheaper than other states, depending where you come from. Obviously Washington. So, vehicle registration, homeowners insurance, things like that are generally cheaper, but like the cost of activities for your kids is not necessarily cheaper, I would say.
No, that's probably...
Food's not necessarily cheaper. And then we have the tax. Washington has higher sales tax, higher property tax. Idaho's going to be lower than that for sure. And if you own... Did that 11% increase go through on guns yet? So firearms and any firearm-related accessories, I believe Washington is tacking on another 11%.
Right. They find ways of getting you because Washington obviously has no state income tax, which is a perk.
That's
right?
a perk.
Idaho has a state income tax. My experience in talking to people that are coming from there, they find ways of getting you like your vehicle registration annually in Idaho, and it's like $80 or
super cheap
or something. Yep. But Washington has to pay for a lot of those programs we talked about, so they're going to get you when it comes to sales tax, and they're going to get you on property taxes too. Yeah. Some states like that, I just feel like they treat their citizens like a resource to be exploited, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah. So overall, real estate's going to be cheaper on the Washington side, honestly, but you can't put a price on freedom.
I do not. I don't disagree with you at all. And for those that are over there, if you get into the outskirts, man, it can still be really, really nice. But I just know that it's going to come with some frustration at the state level when it impacts you, even when you're out there.
And I don't see it getting better over there anytime soon, especially with the new governor. I don't know this one has come through yet, but it's coming down the pipeline. They're going to require $20,000 in liability insurance for every firearm that you own. I want to say that goes into effect in July. It's coming. And we've been getting a lot of calls on the real estate side from guys in Washington that are big in the gun culture and are like, that's not sustainable for me. So, the government in Washington has found a way to push out conservative people or make their lives just terribly miserable.
At the end of the day, man, states are competing for good, productive citizens.
That's a great way to... I've never thought of it but it's almost like a business, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. We're a republic, right? Yeah. We're not just a pure democracy. We're a republic of nation states. And each state kind of gets to dictate their own policies, and we're competing for good citizens. And right now, Washington just isn't competing. They're doubling down on policies that are driving good people out. I mean, you see businesses fleeing from Washington now. Their capital gains taxes, their policies. We have North Idaho Arms that just moved here, a guy that was a pillar of that community in the greater Seattle area, left. He was born and raised there, very proud member of that area, born and raised there, and BZ started up North Idaho Arms over here. So you're watching good small businesses over there start to take off because they're just not competing for good citizens.
God, that's an incredible way to look at it. Well... Yeah, we laid out a lot of pros and cons. I feel I'm laughing because I almost feel bad.
Right.
It's a pretty clear-cut decision for me and a lot of people that end up here. But like I said, there are factors that might limit your decision and force you to end up on the Washington side. And it's not all that bad. Like, we talk a lot of crap about it, but hopefully you heard in between the crap talking that there are a lot of positives about living in Washington as well. So, maybe the negatives aren't a big deal to you and you can look past that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and policies change. I mean, you got to think that pendulum's going to swing back. Right now, Washington's bucking most national trends, and they're doubling down on policies that are really unfavorable to most people.
Yep.
But if it swings back and you get an opportunity to buy something a little lower, maybe. But I've been hoping for a long time Washington changes. And it's entrenched on that west side. It's going to be tough.
Well, we'll see what happens. I would love to hear some comments, what you guys think about Washington versus Idaho. Keep it PG or YouTube will boot you out of there, but would love to hear them regardless and have that conversation with you guys. And our real estate team does service Washington as well. So if you guys are looking to move to Eastern Washington or North Idaho, of course, give us a call, text, or email. We would love to help you make that smooth move. Either way, thank you.